Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Skåne here in the south of Sweden, and we're going to return to a brewery that I haven't tried anything from in about 2 years now. But the last time I reviewed a beer from these guys, it was an American wheat beer, but they were just going through a kind of rebranding and changing a lot of their recipes at that time, so it will be quite cool to return to these guys now after a little bit of a gap. So for this one we are going to head up to Kristianstad, which is in the northeastern part of Skåne, and we're having a taste of another beer from Klackabackens Bryggeri, and this one is their Imperial Porter, which goes by the name of What the Duck. Comes in at 7.8%, and you know, it should be quite an interesting one, as I was impressed with the last beer that I had from these guys. And as I always say, when you try beers from a brewery, you want to try something from the darker end of the spectrum, such as the porters and stouts, and you also want to try something from the lighter side of things, such as the IPAs, and that gives you a whole, it gives you a nice idea actually of the scope of the brewery itself. So really looking forward to this one, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. We do have some really good craft breweries down here in Skåne at the moment, and there's about 400 throughout the whole of Sweden actually. So yeah, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Klackabackens Bryggeri before. No doubt I will add some more in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Klackabackens Bryggeri then. So Klackabackens Bryggeri was founded by 3 childhood friends. This is Kristoffer Ljunggren, Marcus Lundmark and Olof Olsson. And basically back in 2011, the 3 of them decided to go on holidays to the US and do a bit of a road trip. And while they were doing that, they ended up tasting a lot of the different craft beers over there. And when they returned to Sweden, they decided they wanted to start home brewing for themselves. So Kristoffer apparently had previously worked for Aquavit in New York, and he'd also worked for Brewpub Apollo in Copenhagen as well. And when they returned to Sweden, they set up a very small brewery in a converted 18th century farmhouse in Skeppeslöv, which is just outside of Kristianstad. They began their test brews in 2012, and these had been perfected by February of 2013, and on this site they also set up a brew pub in 2014 as well. But since the foundation of the company, brewer Marcus Anahelt has also become a partner in the company, and they've now built a new brewery at Untappd, which gives them a capacity of around 135,000 litres of beer per year, and they're hoping to increase that at the moment to around 500,000 litres within the next year or two. So yeah, a small brewery at the moment. They do have quite an extensive range of different beers actually. They've got Pilsners, they've got an IPA, a session IPA, they've got a stout I think as well as a light beer. They've got a couple of different things there. So for a brewery that is, that haven't been around all that long, and I think it was the same when I checked them out a little while ago, for a brewery that haven't been around too long, they did actually have a very kind of impressive range. I'm sure it might have actually been back in 2017 that I reviewed my last beer from these guys. So yeah, somewhere around 18 months, 2 years ago that I had my last beer from these guys. But it is cool to see that they're still around and still sticking new beers out there. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Klackabackens Bryggeri just now. If you want to learn a little bit more, then you can check out the brewery website in the description below, and of course you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, and you can check out the Untappd page to have a look at all the different beers that they do. So yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. We can get rid of the brewery notes now. If the screen will go off, there we go. But yeah, there you can see the duck in its soldier's uniform. Yeah, so one of the things, when I actually picked this beer up when I was in Kristianstad with my girlfriend, and we were just walking around in the park next to the train station, just enjoying the nice sunny weather, and a duck just flew like really close to us, past us, and she's like, what the fuck? She had no idea that ducks could actually fly, and this was this was actually after I'd bought this beer in the Seestempellag up there, so it was just kind of funny actually. And this brewery, Klackabacken, I don't know what it is. This word I just find quite funny because it really reminds me of you know, what an old Scottish word. If you say your clacker bag, it means your balls, basically. So yeah, this beer in this brewery always gives me a little bit of a kind of laugh actually when I try their beers. I don't know if I mentioned that in the last video, but there you can see the crazy duck. Obviously, my girlfriend has now learned that ducks do fly. Apparently, in Japan they don't normally fly. But yeah, there you can see the Klackabackens bottle cap on this one. But yeah, really quite nicely presented, this beer, and I do like the artwork. All the artwork is fairly similar, just with a different picture and a slightly different colour label, depending on what you know, just depending on what beer it actually is. But yeah, 7.8% Imperial Porter, this one. So without further ado, let's get it out and we will get on with the tasting then. I'll stick that up here. But yeah, let's get it out and see how we get on. You can see a nice little bit of smoke coming out of this one as we open it up. This one we'll need to watch with the head a little bit. And there we go. Yeah, that should die down just nicely. But yeah, I think it was a little bit aggressive on the pour there maybe, but yeah, it should be okay. But as you can see, this beer has poured a lovely, dark, sort of ebony rosewood colour, which is, you know, that is what you would expect from an Imperial Porter. You can actually see there is a few little blobs of sediment just at the bottom of that there. There is obviously a little bit in there. It said this beer is best before the 28th of January 2021. So yeah, you could actually age this a little bit. You could age this for about 2 years apparently. But yeah, really nice looking beer, this one. Definitely a dark ebony rosewood colour. If I'm holding it up to the light, it doesn't even really have a kind of Coca-Cola edge to it or anything, but there's one or two bigger bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and a few smaller ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, it's really, the head is massive, but that's my own fault. It's about 2 and a bit fingers of a frothy, I would say, you know, kind of medium sort of tan beigey head on this one. But yeah, it looks very, very nice. So yeah, nice looking beer, this one. You can smell some of the lovely chocolatey notes of this beer as you're moving it around. But let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one then. Oh yeah, that smells really nice actually. So yeah, with this beer you can immediately smell some of the roasty black malt coming out of this one. You can just smell that forming the kind of backbone of the beer. You've got this kind of almost dusty, powdery chocolate that comes out of this beer. It's almost like if you go into, you know, you smell the inside of a hot, you know, the hot chocolate powder thing. It really does. Remember, that's an Oh Boy, Oloy or something like that, or Oyo. There's a hot chocolate brand that we have here in Sweden, that the aroma of this one really reminds me of actually. Definitely got some of that chocolatey powder in this one. But yeah, the chocolatey side of this beer, I'd say it's somewhere in the mid kind of cocoa range. I think you're talking about 60%, 70% cocoa in terms of the chocolatey notes that are in here. It's not one of the more darker chocolate. I'd say there's maybe even a little bit of a toasty chocolate note to this beer as well. But yeah, there is a little tiny bit of a kind of coffee-ish smoothness to this one, but not, you know, it's not overly obvious, if that makes sense. There's maybe a little bit of an almost kind of tobacco-y note to this beer. That was the first impression that I had of this actually. It had this sort of leathery tobacco type aroma when you opened it up. I'm not, you know, I'm thinking about this one. Would you, from the aroma, would you be able to tell that this one's a porter or a stout? To me, if I blind smelled this one, I might think it's more along the lines of a stout. But that, in fairness to it, it does have that big roasty black malt backbone to it. And of course, the main difference between the porters and the stouts is the mouthfeel, which comes from the yeast. Usually, you use like a lighter kind of lager yeast or something like that for a porter beer, but this is the English equivalent of the German Schwarzbier, right enough. So there is a bit of a difference between an English porter and a German Schwarzbier, right enough. And the stout, of course, uses an ale yeast rather than a sort of golden ale yeast or something like that. But yeah, the aroma of this beer is pretty nice. It does have an element of woodiness and leatheriness and almost just a little bit of tobacco to it, which is interesting, but nice darker chocolate notes in this one. Nice little bit of yeah, definitely has a nice little bit of a kind of roasty chocolate note. I'd say about a 60-70% cocoa mark on this one. Nice little bit of earthiness to the hops there. yeah, definitely has a nice little bit of an earthy edge to the hops, and you can pick up that there's a little touch of a kind of red fruitiness in this beer as well. It's almost like a kind of candied fig, or it's even just a little bit sharper than that maybe. But yeah, quite an interesting aroma to this one, so take a little bit of time and just enjoy that for yourself before you get stuck into this beer. But we're going to have a taste of this one then. So this one is the What the Duck, an Imperial Porter at 7.8% from Klackabackens Bryggeri in Kristianstad here in Skåne in the very south of Sweden. So yeah, let's get stuck into this beer. Slange, skål! Ooh. Now I will say, this is really quite nice. That's a good porter beer. If you like your porters to lean towards the roasty toasty side of things, this is going to be one that that really hits the spot for you. And it's definitely a more of an English porter, this, than an American porter. As we always say, when it comes to the American takes on these old world styles, I've always found that the American ones are just a little bit more kind of sugary and sweeter and things like this. But this one, it is almost a little bit like a robust porter, if you like. They've done a good job with that. That's a good, if you like this style, that's a good beer. I mean, a lot of people nowadays, you know, everyone's going crazy for the New England IPAs and the Imperial stouts. Everyone likes the, you know, the kind of beastly beers. But, you know, the styles like the porters and the Schwarzbiers and the Dunkels and everything like that, they're often forgotten about. But, you know, if you try things like this every so often, it is really quite nice actually. I do like what they've done with this beer. It gets a thumbs up from me. And it definitely has that nice, slightly lighter mouthfeel that you would want from this particular beer style. But yeah, let's just try and break the flavour of this one down a little bit more. So middle of your palate, you've got a nice little bit of a roasty, toasty black malt to this beer. And that, you know, it really starts to push its way out a little bit more in the aftertaste of this one. You know, I'm not sure if it does. This beer does have a little bit of a kind of coffee smoothness to it, but I've always found that when you actually add coffee to the beer, it just comes out a little bit smoother than it does. I don't think they've actually added coffee beans to this one. It should tell you on the side here. Yeah, no, it's just this one is a sort of a straight up beer. It doesn't say that they've added coffee beans or anything to it. I think this one is purely just from the malt base. So to me, the flavours in this one, there is almost a little bit of like an espresso-y type flavour to it, but it's not quite as round. It's just not quite as rounded and smooth a roasty flavour as you would get if you added the coffee to the brew. You know, you've got Dugas Brewery doing that series with Hunter and Sons. The Key, for example, just beautiful coffee stouts that they do. But yeah, for this one, this is just a really nice. It's a really nice kind of quite strong roasty toasty porter. I do like how they've pulled this one off. They've done a good job with this beer. So yeah. Nice roasty black malt backbone to this one. It's got a nice chocolatey sweetness in the middle of the palate as well. Yeah, so for me, this beer has a nice chocolatey edge to it in the middle. Like I was saying, I think in terms of the flavour, I think the cocoa percentage, the chocolate in here, is a little bit higher. It is leaning more towards that 80-90%, but I think it might be the you know, I think it might be the more roasty malts that are giving that impression. Actually, the roasty black malts in this beer really are quite dominant. The aromas that I was getting, the kind of tobacco-y notes, the kind of woody, leathery things, don't come out too much in the flavour. There is a little element of woodiness if you come further forward on the palate. You do have a little element of that in here with this one. And I like how that goes together. In the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little touch of quite a roasty earthiness in there, and as you come further forward along the sides of the palate, that spreads forward. Maybe becomes even a little touch herbal there, but you've got a little touch of a floral aromaticity at the front corners of the palate, then round the very front curve of the tongue. the beer is just that little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. But yeah, behind the front curve of the palate then, that's where you get that little oily bubble where some of those juicy fruity esters start to come out of the beer. One thing I will say about this beer as well is I do suspect that this has English hops in it, just from the way the earthiness is. There might be an American hop in there as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if they've used a little bit of you know, Kent Goldings or you know, something like that. I don't think that it's quite Fugels that they've used in this one, but Fugels is quite a popular hop to use in some of these more English style porters. To me, this one really is. It's either a robust porter or it's more of an English porter, this one. I've always found the English porters are quite roasty and toasty, and this one really does lean towards that robust, roasty, toasty porter side of things. Yeah, it starts off sweeter in the beginning, but then it really, when the palate just dries out of this one, it just really rolls into that nice roasty, toasty side of things. So yeah, as I say, if you like your porters to be a bit darker and more roasty, this is going to kind of tick all the boxes for you. Behind the front curve of the tongue then, where you get this like sort of oily, this little bit of an oily bubble there. Yeah, you've got a nice kind of red fruity note to this one. It's got a little bit of sharpness to it. It does almost have a little bit of a raisiny sharpness in the beginning, but then it just smooths out to be a little bit more of a kind of candied red fruity ester rather than anything else. I really like how everything in this goes together. They've got a very nice it just the whole flavour just flows very nicely in this one, and everything fits together very, very well. I mean, it's, as I say, if you like your porters to be roasty toasty, then this one is going to tick a lot of different boxes for you. So yeah, just be aware of that when you have a taste of this one. So yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say this beer is kind of light bodied. Carbonation is pretty smooth on this one. I like how the you know, yeah, smooth carbonation. The mouthfeel overall is quite a lighter. I think it's fair to say the mouthfeel in this one's mainly smooth rather than anything else, but it really does start to lean more towards the roasty toasty side of things the further into the beer that you go. But you've got a nice darker. You've got a nice bit of hoppy bitterness from this one. I think this beer might be up in the sort of 60, 70 IBU region. I think maybe about 60 IBUs is fair for this beer. It might even be a little bit more than that. Good balance between the roastiness in the malt base and a little bit of sweetness in there as well. But the malt base does kind of dry out that little bit. Good little touch of fruitiness in there also. But yeah, it's just a very solid, quite robust English style porter, this one. So as I've said a couple of times, if you like your porters to be roasty and toasty, this one is going to tick the boxes for you. But yeah, let's just leave it at that for this. A nice roasty toasty English type porter, this one, and I'm pretty sure they've used some English hops in here. But yeah, a really nice beer, this one, and again, as I said last time, I've been impressed with the quality of the beers that you're getting from Klackabackens Bryggeri. So yeah, so once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this one in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from the Klackabackens Bryggeri as well, and I'm sure I'll return to these guys at some point fairly soon. Thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, and I will catch you guys very soon. This one is the Bot the Duck, an Imperial Porter coming in at 7.8% from Klackabackens Bryggeri in Kristianstad here in Skåne in the very south of Sweden. And do remember, ducks can fly. Slange, skull.